which is now is no longer corruption, but theft at an industrial scale, the way how I can describe it. Then impunity when it comes to the security operatives who are supposed to be protecting people and their property. They are involved in mistreating people. I would say tyranny, mistreating people. They are involved in even evicting people from land as resources. Then when you come to health, education, all these institutions have collapsed. And all that are issues that we also that concern us, and we keep debating, and then we say, where can we support? So when we see proactive leaders that come up, like General Muntu, the Alisa Lasso, and other like-minded people who want to see a transformed Uganda, then we say we should be part of this conversation, we should be part of this journey, and we should be part of this story.
Now, of course, there is so much everyone can do in order to make a change. But do you have a feeling that there is a general feeling of apathy and non-involvement by the people in Uganda? Because I don't see much action in any direction, really, politically.
Yes, like as I told you that if we go back, when you look at the history of Uganda, right away from pre-colonial times, and then during the colonial times when in 1958, I think, when Sir Andrew Cohen, they established the Legico, and then the way how they were ruling Uganda and so on, and then we come into the first election, I think 1961, between DP and UPC, and then Uganda boycotting. So when we see all these, and then we see the coup of Idi Amin in 1971, and then the constitution is abolished, Uganda is ruled by decree, and then from there we see also Amin is pushed out in around 1980s by the Uganda National Liberation Front, and then we see the military now, the military now appointed like an electoral commission. So things begin to get confused there. And then we see now Museveni coming in, and also he also appoints, not like the people get involved. And then because of all that confusion, then it sets, it casts a negative or low attitude of the population in terms of believing in democratic kind of processes or getting involved. Then they have that kind of fear. Now, as ANT, it's what we are struggling to do, or what we like when Mugisha Muntu and the rest of the team of ANT are doing that. Okay, let's go and educate the masses, because I would say that if we don't empower citizens, because like I'm sorry to say, most of the Ugandans, like they lost, there is no civic education, they lost interest in, they no longer own Uganda. They think Uganda belongs to Museveni, and then he's the one who apportions that cake. You have this, and yet it would be the other way around, that Museveni would be our servant as the people of Uganda. And so changing the mindset of Ugandan to say, look here, you are citizens, we need to empower you. Not until we do this and then have the Ugandans believe in themselves that the country belongs to us, and we are the one to determine each and everything, determining leadership, determining the destination of our country, and demanding services from those who are in, whom we have entrusted with the leadership, then would be going nowhere. And that's why for us, part of the conversations we want to get involved in, and why we attracted to ANT in the diaspora, is because we are building a momentum from the grassroots level. But it is an uphill task because for so many years, like when Museveni came in, like everybody went into the movement system for almost 16 years when they opened for multi-party. But all this time, the Ugandans were being, I would say, they are believing in themselves. It was being taken away from them, that they remain or will remain living at the mercy of Museveni, who became the state, and the state is himself who would dictate everything and so on. And so that mindset, we have to change it because it feeds into having real proactive leaders or growing leaders that are of value, leaders that respect, that believe in transparency, leaders that believe in gender equity, for example, leaders that we find that believe in conflict resolution, in negotiation, because like at this point, Uganda is divided. There is disunity. And so all these conversations we need to be part of, and our hope, we see it is in ANT, that at least has those values, has those capabilities of putting such mechanisms in place.
But civic education has been removed from schools, and people have practically no access. There is no continuous process anywhere where people are being educated en masse on their rights, civic rights and responsibilities. I normally always say these two words together. They are rights, but they're also responsibilities. And while people are aware that they do have some rights, they are often not aware of their civic responsibilities. So do you see diaspora potentially preparing a program or funding a program of civic education in Uganda?
Oh, thank you, Nada, for that question. Yeah, you know, we always have engagements amongst ourselves and to say, okay, how can we be of support? How can we be of help? Yeah, because that is also on our agenda to say, okay, what can we help, for example, in as far as promoting this? But we are cognizant of the fact that for sure civic education is important. And where we can, we have also supported, especially the grassroots mobilization, where we have seen our leaders traverse the country or go to different places. We have supported that approach, and we will continue to grow it and to ensure that that is the right way to go, given that civic education has been abolished in schools, where people would get to know their roles as citizens, and also the roles of leaders and how they can hold leaders accountable, or leaders can hold the citizen accountable. Or yeah, we are supporting that, and we believe that like as a chapter, USA chapter, we are trying to put a mechanism of how even we can make our chapter better to be in position to stand and fully support and engage into these different activities on the grassroots level without being on the bad side of the law, because we believe in the rule of law and we are law-abiding citizens.
Tell me, what are the comments of your colleagues in diaspora regarding the recent developments in the country, especially driving to the outcomes of the presidential address to the parliament recently, State of the Nation address? Did you
thank you,
draw
Nada.
any comments from there?
Thank you. First of all, the presidential addresses that he normally carries out, he tends to run away from the real issues that are affecting people. And to me, that should be the main issue that the president should be doing. and then he dwells on history of Uganda and very few pseudo issues that do not address the fundamental challenges or problems that are affecting an ordinary Ugandan. And then he goes just to address his ministers and so on. The recent address, we thought there could be fundamental things that he would talk about. Number one, he would talk about, like, now that we are from COVID, he would talk about the economy, because most people back home are struggling when it comes to the economy. How do we recover from that? How do we ensure that people get back onto their wheels and the country moves forward? He would talk about health, because that was a disaster, mismanaged during the COVID and up to now a lot. If he would tell us about the audit that was carried out, like for example, misappropriation of different funds and so on. Then education, if you would talk or tell us about the education sector, because like one of the comments the teachers were saying in secondary, now the curriculum was changed to competence-based, but even up to now they keep struggling. The more they add one class, then they are struggling. Okay, what do we do? Do we know even what to do with this next class? Like right now they would be preparing for A level. So I expected that he would hint on those. And why am I saying that he would hint on those? Because all those would create a conducive socio-political and economic environment. Now, once that is created, in my view, and I believe that is what my party believes in, then it would lead to good governance, like the products that come from that, accountability and so on. And then this would either, there would be policy review, that what worked and what did not work, what lesson did we pick from this? And at the end of the day, we have an efficient system established. But he deviated from that. But then again, we expected for him to talk about the what I call theft at an industrial scale. Like you saw his ministers, how they had taken iron sheets that belonged to Karamoja. But leave alone that, he would also address the hunger that has been reaping, devastating Karamoja for a long time. What plans do we have for that region? But instead, you see even the poor people of Karamoja who are supposed to receive iron sheets, who are supposed to receive some relief, but still his hungry ministers would share even the little that is there for the poor. I expected him to talk about that. But I'm convinced of the fact that he does not talk about that, because His Excellency is the perpetrator of embezzlement and corruption in Uganda. I will give an example. Number one, when there was the saga for the junk helicopters, I don't know whether you ever heard about that. He came out because one of his family members was implicated, and he said, oh, it's not bad to eat a commission. So he was defending. Number two, you heard of the Rubowa Hospital, the Pinet Hospital, and so on. Again, he was behind it, and how we lose money, but he was defending it. Then the coffee deal, again, you see how he was defending it. The former Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development, Zoe Bakoko Bakoro, I think around 2015, she gave a comment of how the mismanagement in the National Social Security Fund stems from the office of the president, if not from the president himself. And now you see currently how, again, this is money for poor people who say we can save for the future. You see how there was already that confusion. So all these things we expected that he should talk about them, but he was not addressing it. That means that in one way or another, he was privy and part and parcel of all these schemes that keep taking place. And we believe not until, but for me, I have no hope in him. The hope that I have it in change. When we bring in leaders that are able to help us. But for him, he already ran out of ideas long time ago. Generally, if you brought them 7 of 1986 and you put them together with them 7 of today, generally them 7 of around 2001 and 2006, those people, by the time you come back to the room, they will have fought and killed each other, because them 7 of them and them 7 of today are completely different. So everything he thinks about himself as if God sent him to deliver Uganda, to go with it. Generally, he owns it. That's why in some of his statements, you will hear him saying, my army. And yet, in our constitution, this is supposed to be people's army. And that's why you see even the behaviors of the army is also like they are serving Museveni, not serving Ugandans. Now you have seen the son also keeps referring to it as his army. So that's how big the problem is. And now when he goes also to address the members of parliament, instead of going to parliament, now he calls them to wherever he wants to take them, like in Kololo. That's how Uganda is now under the hands of a single individual and taking it to be more or less like his home. So he has to decide what to do and not what to do, as if he was just in his compound. Thank you.
It's interesting, actually, to be honest, I haven't thought about it, that the parliament address happened at Kololo, not in the parliament where it's supposed to be. And thank you very much for pointing that out. It totally flew over my head, but indeed, parliament as an institution is supposed to stand its own ground and receive its guests in its own house. And now we see something different happening. Have you got any comment on the parliament's behavior lately and the soups that they were cooking in parliament recently?
Nada, thank you, but I'm not getting you clearly. Is it comments about, okay, in general, this is what I would say, that I'll give a general comment that when we look at the arms of government, the executive, that one collapsed a long time ago. The judiciary is under hostage. The legislature, because to some extent, like as I told you, that because the people who would be in leadership, the people who would be able to articulate some of these things have been thrown away from politics, either because of gerrymandering by the national movement, the NRM, to create some constituencies where they know they'll just push in, like as how the president Museveni said that only what he needs are people, even if they come and sleep, they don't say anything. When it comes to voting, they raise up their hands. So he's okay with that. And then it ends up bringing, to some extent, some of the leaders or people who are even not supposed to be in parliament. Because when you are discussing laws, you are discussing policies, you need to have your mind very sober. But now you see the way how the movement government, what it ushered in. People don't look at people who have ideas. They look either at people who have the money, because and some of the members of parliament, they come there as a source of employment, not as, they are not driven by conviction to serve. They are driven either by conviction to make money or by other people who, because of lack of civic education, who are not informed, and then they just send them there, either like the movement government introduced buying votes, 1,000 Ugandan shillings, then a person buys. But I mean, the person is paid and sells his right because of that, because that is what has been inculcated into the population. And that means that even when it comes to some of the laws, I'm not saying all members of parliament in the House are not measured to that extent, but to some extent, most of them are not. And then when even it comes to the nature, the quality of debate on floor of parliament, you see, it's not what you would expect of a parliament. That's why you will see some empty seats. That's why you will see even some of these laws that come. We believe that it is some of the issues that this should be an issue that, for example, that they should give more time. They should carry out research. And so when they are coming on floor of parliament, they are not speaking as if it is a village council sitting in some rural village somewhere. This is something of national importance. That is number one, but also it has an international or global relation, because at the level of the parliament, when you are discussing all these issues, we are not operating in a bubble. We are operating, you have to discuss something that you know, how does it affect us in Uganda, but also as East Africans, but also as it plays around in East Africa, how does it affect us as Africans? That is the whole continent. Then from there, then where does it situate Africa in the global arena? So, you see, that would be the logic. But you find they just wake up and then something is, that's why you find that today they will discuss this, tomorrow they are in court, today the president also is having a different position on the same thing, and so on. And then when it also goes to court, sometimes it finds our judicial system, which has also been captured, and then due diligence or justice is not done. So it is quite a state of confusion. The parliament that, for example, is supposed to offer checks and balances, like even when they recommend. I will give an example. When they censured a series of ministers, did Museveni do anything? Those would be some of the things that he would be talking about during the address, the public address, the State of Nation, or addressing Parliament, and say, okay, you did a noble cause, you returned this person that is not worthy. This is like, for example, what I have done. But apart from that, then I ask myself, okay, what next that now the Parliament looks to be captured? That's what I would say. And then it would be a very robust topic that also needs to be discussed comprehensively. What do we need to do? But like as I said, we as ANT, we still believe that going back and educating the masses so that we build a critical mass that would say, look here, enough is enough. Like if we begin from the grassroots level, we would be able to clear all these messes, and then we have Uganda move forward in a transformative way. Thank you.
What you're saying is how democracy should work. Ideally, it would be the grassroots to elect their representatives, who elect their representatives and president and so on. And it's the rule of the majority over the minority. But in practice, as you mentioned, some votes are swung this way or the other with the influence of a little bit of money. I have also heard that there were numerous malpractices, including ballot stuffing in the last elections and the elections before and the elections before. So what it points to me is that maybe the model of democracy as seen in the developed countries, maybe that model does not necessarily work, or it shouldn't be the model implemented in Uganda. Do you have any comment on that?
Thank you, Nada. That's a good question. We generally would ask even ourselves that if you look at the mode of democracy for Africans, and you go in most of the societies, if you touch something that does not belong to you, like in the traditional, real traditional African democracy. They would even bring you forward, either they excommunicate you from that village, or at most they would give corporal punishments. You are beaten. But for our case, we would say somebody should be in jail. Like, by the way, under normal circumstances, for some of these atrocities that the NRM has done, some of the people would be in jail. And it is not all about that either it is Western democracy. No, this is also African democracy. In African democracy, there is no room for a thief, for example. Thieves were not treated with impunity. Like, as I have told you, the people who embezzled all these funds and corruption that is taking place. In African tradition, even if you go to any village, you say, what should we do to them? They would even say, bring them, this is what we do traditionally. And since we are in government, we all agreed to come together, they should be in prison. Or they should stand or they should stand aside as investigation take root to establish what is the truth and so on. But this is not taking place. It has nothing to do with whether it is Western democracy that is not working. No, I would say generally that there is a lot of moral decadence that the NRM system has introduced in Uganda and has planted. And now that's why you see, as ANT, we are having an uphill task. One, to change the mindset of Ugandans. Number two, to tell them about the values, the morals, and what the implication they have if it continues, if there is no good morals. These morals that will lead into good governance, and good governance that will lead into sustainable development in all these aspects that I have said. Like in our model, for example, if people don't have good education, they don't have good morals in education system, they will produce citizens who are morally crooked. And once we have those, what does it imply? Even if you recruit them in the army or police, they will not perform. Even if you recruit them in public service, they will not perform. Even if you take them in health, they will not. Even if you say Uganda, our backbone is agriculture, even if you take them in agriculture, they will not. And even if you take them to legislation in parliament, still they will not. So that's why for us, we say no, this should be the other way around. You can't begin, if you want to teach children the basics of reading, you can't begin by teaching them university material. You begin with decoding down this way from pre-primary, and then you begin building them afresh. And I'm saying Museveni, this is not an opinion of ANT, it's my opinion as a person. Museveni did this on purpose, to know that let me first collapse the fabric of society. Let me first collapse the institutions and chase away the people who would be proactive leaders, people who genuinely would be good public servants, and they shy away from politics. And then I bring in what he said, that his cabinet, the current cabinet, was full of fishermen. If I may use, yeah, I think that's what he said. And then we have seen what the fishermen are doing. So not until we change that status quo. But I also do not believe in saying that we just change a mere changing of leadership. If you change the leadership without preparing right away from the grassroots level, that once we change the top leadership, or once we change these people who are in offices, what next? And as ANT, that's why I believe in the approach of continuous mobilizing. And that's why I agree with our leaders, even where we won some seats, like Terego and so many other areas at local councils, they go and teach them in an ideal situation as a model. How should a leader be? What should a leader do? And believe me, you will see changes in those areas where ANT, whether it is at the grassroots level where we have won some of the seats. And we will continue to reach the masses as much as we can to undo the wrongs that the NRM has done in as far as civic education and building an empowered citizenry is concerned. Thank you.
What you just mentioned, I would like to illustrate with my recent example. I visited someone who lives in Gerenge fishing village. I visited the family. Father, mother, 7 children, no permanent employment for the parents. They live off fishing or some odd jobs. Out of the 7 kids, only 1 is in school. Unfortunately, this child was terribly sick and he had an operation and he has resumed his studies in P3 at the age of 14. This is the impact of his sickness and COVID and everything else after COVID. Now, of the 2 eldest daughters, 1 is married with a baby, the other one is not married, but with a baby. And they live as a family in less than 20 square meters of a solid house with mabati roof planted at Gerenge on government land. And they have no hope. They were clear in saying that they have absolutely no hope in things getting better for them. They have no hope in putting these kids through school. And what happened to free primary education in Uganda? Do you have any explanation? How did our education become a money-making business?
Thank you, Nada, for that observation. What you've said is so unfortunate, but these are the fruits that the NRM has brought, or what we can see. And that's why we are saying that if the population of Uganda, and it will be so, doubles by maybe 2050, and of which it will have even more than doubled, and there is no robust planning for that population, it will be a disaster. Having said that, when we look at UPE, if you look even at I'm not conversant with currently what government offers to educate 1 child. I think right now it could be between 5,000 and around 8,000, either a term or it could be a year. I'm not sure about that statistics. But if you can calculate, that would be equivalent to $1 point something. Now, which under the World Bank, it is below the poverty line. Now, under normal circumstance, a government that would be thinking ahead would have put all these into consideration to say, okay, how do we then put up an education system that is working for everyone? But because they don't know these things, that's why there is poor planning. And that's why I told you that in our model as ANT, education is key, because we know what it means. And that's why for them, you will find their children are studying from abroad. So they don't know the implication of what it means. Now, if we don't have, like, I will tie it back to civic education, maybe the NRM, because all those children that you are talking about who have even given birth, they were born during Museveni's regime. So because of lack of good health services, like the good health services that would also even educate the people about the importance of family planning, maybe that mother will not have 7 children, would have maybe maybe 3 or 4 that they can manage. So for us in our package, all this is there. Now, when it comes to UPE, for sure, most of the schools, I think if you go, since you are used to that road of Gerenge, there is a school called, along that road, I don't know whether it is, I'm forgetting the name, but the students study under, sorry?
Bugabo or Bulega?
Bugabo or Bulega, any of the two. But I know now they put some structures, but one of the classrooms are trees. And that is a government school. But then you ask yourself, where does the money go? Now, you heard of the ghost teachers, the ghost public servants, and so on. Are those ghost servants, are they made by the local people? The answer is no. That's where the money goes. That's what Museveni has done. And so if they could go, that's why we said the grassroots. Because Museveni grabbed everything, and then who is the Minister of Education. And yet, if people were allowed to plan from the grassroots, as how we are saying, empowering the citizens, that one is key as far as ANT is concerned. All these aspects would be sorted out. But because he's clinging there, either with less knowledge in some of these aspects, and then he's the state, and the state is himself. I remember one of the journalists, Andrew Mwenda, on one of the talk shows said that Museveni is the one who has so many presidential advisors. Even when they go to advise him, he's the one who advises them instead. So, and then now his theory of fishermen, you really see everything is confused. That's why as ANT we say there needs to be review of government policies. But that is an uphill task for everything to function. There should be responsive, efficient public institutions like Minister of Education, so that we are able to change the status quo. But where we are trading is a completely dangerous path. I'm glad that you know Entebbe very well and those areas and the examples you are giving. But for sure, what can we do? The money itself that government gives out amidst corruption is little that it can't. Like for example, Entebbe. Tell me the 5,000 what it can do to a pupil who is in primary, for example. Nothing. Will it buy the exercise books for this child for a whole term? The answer is no. Okay. Can it buy let's say scholastic materials at a school level to say let's stock the library or let's buy chalk and so on? So you see, all this was the trick of Museveni to say, if I have a very huge population of uneducated people and I give them 1,000, they don't know they are right, they will vote me. And that mass, he built it to sustain himself in power. And now, that very population, I will keep telling them that they are surviving because of me, because of him, and which he has done successfully. So for us to undo all those wrongs, we need time, and it needs people who are focused, it needs people who are resilient, like ANT, and it needs people who have a real transformation agenda, like the one that we have at ANT, not a mayor shouting and making noise, because what we are addressing is a very fundamental and significant question, the question of the situation in Uganda. If I would echo some, I don't know exactly who said so, but one of the fighters, I think in South Africa, was going for war. He was a warrior and he said, Almighty God, I'm praying that you come and be with us as we go for this war. And since it is a war of old people and a war of men, I'm just praying that come yourself, don't send your son, come yourself. So as ANT also, what we are heading, like in as far as building a transformed Uganda is concerned, is not an easy task, and we can't also deceive you that we are going to accomplish it in 5 years. All this confusion has been there for now 40 years, or I would say since independence. But then that's why for us we are saying, where did we go wrong? What do we need to fix? And what can we fix at what time? And who needs to be on board? So I think all these aspects, the moment we do them, we have proactive leaders, as I would say, empowered citizenry, all these aspects of education and so on will be sorted out. Because that's when you can say, okay, as a parent, can you participate in the education of your child? Can you ensure that your child has gone to school? If there is reading material, can you encourage your child at home to read? Can you encourage your child at home to do homework? But you can't do this if the citizenry themselves, they just say that, oh, the president said all should go to school. And he comes and he says, don't tell a child to bring books. Don't chase a child for this. They should just sit there, because he wants it to be a place where they can grow and they reach an age to vote. And then he gives them 1,000 and then they vote for him. And is that a good scenario for Uganda? The answer is no. And I have always said that where Uganda has reached, it is easy to deal with the angry people. Like Ugandans are angry with the system. But what he's doing in his policies, Ugandans are also becoming at the same time hungry. Because you must have seen how some people are starving, some people have nothing to eat. And dealing with people who are both angry and hungry is very dangerous for a country. And it is soon happening in Uganda. Thank you.
Well, just to go back briefly to St. Paul Bulega Church, I did come to know through our local governance system that the school did not receive government funding for the past 5 years. Just recently, we built a makeshift classroom in some eucalyptus poles and mabati sheets and some plastic cavera stuck on the sides so that kids can be protected from the rain. The situation is really not good. On further inquiries with our area MP, I got feedback that the school staff know exactly why they're not receiving the money. There must be something that they have not submitted to the ministry, and that is why the money is not coming. But this is 5 years. I don't understand why they shouldn't be able to rectify it much quicker. But anyway, we have had a request from Levi Eyaru to speak. So I would like to add Levi as a speaker and let him ask his question before we continue with our discussion. Levi, you are on? Not yet, though. As we're trying to connect Levi, there is a topic that we have avoided so far, but I have to ask this question. Recently, a few days ago, the Parliament has passed the homosexuality bill, and somehow the world media picked this news up and drummed it up. Literally every TV channel was full of news about Uganda. What is your take? Is this a good or a bad thing for Uganda? And do you think the president will sign the bill?
Thank you, Nada, for asking that question. And from a personal standpoint of view, I always say that to progress in this world, God created us different so that we should know each other and we tolerate each other and we complement each other and we work together. But again, at the same time, I'm not a student of law, but those who are doing law, they will, like as I have said, each community has its own values. Each society has its own needs. And also the laws follow that what are the values of a given society or community. Then their laws or norms and so on will follow that trend. What are the needs of this society and so on. And it is from that they will come with the do's and don'ts at a basic level. That's why now we have the laws and so on. Now, when it comes to the homosexual bill, now, at first it was passed and we had court nullify it, and then it came back and again redebated, and then other portions added and so on. This is what I will have to say. In history, we have been hearing that there used to be even some leaders, even in Uganda itself, who were homosexuals. But I think the problem where the international media and is not agreeing with the local laws, in particular those of Uganda, is the context. I have not read the law, but I don't know whether the law is prohibiting homosexuality or it is prohibiting promotion, because these are two different things. And then number two, for sure, if it is prohibiting promotion, I also do agree then with it as a person, but that is not a position of ANT. Because most of these things, as we go to different cultural values and societies, they are things that we should believe in. As a parent, I also believe that there are things that should not be taught or recruited. Some of these things you don't recruit. But if it evolves that people are doing it in their private affairs, that is their business. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I would also have a problem with where there is promotion, like open promotion, let's say, for example, in schools. Because once we say we are a democratic world, we should respect each other, that if I also don't like this, then don't impose it on me. So that I also agree that if you like it, I'll give an example. I was a teacher and a head teacher of schools, but you would find some Muslims would come into a school, and I have Christians and I have this. But it would be inconsiderate for me to say, okay, because the majority of the students in this school are non-Muslims, and therefore they can eat pork, and then I go and cook pork, which I know the Muslims would not eat. But also, I would not say that because the Muslims are going to fast and they are 10, and because of that, every child at school will not eat lunch, they should also fast. So to me, that's how. But if I would find maybe a child who is bullying, maybe if it's a Muslim child who is bullying a non-Muslim, for example, that look here, why are you eating and yet it is a fasting period? I would also say that is wrong, because this person has their right. And the other way around. So to me, that's how I look at it. And I know, one, the president may sign it, but as a democratic country, I don't stop those who think that their rights have been infringed on to go to court. But I would also argue them that it is also important they should look back, like some of the children who have fallen victims for sure the horrors that have happened to them, or as a community of LGBTQ in Uganda, for them, they should also come out and condemn such acts that either are done by people who now are leading into an outburst of the community or an outburst of the society that no, I think this is being blown out of proportion. But otherwise, if we just say that there should not be a law, then even the law against defilement and so on also doesn't stand, because it is also about issues of sex, that then people can go rape each other, people can go and defile as much as they can. So for me, that is my basis of argument. We have to strike a balance. And there is always a saying that you help the police in order the police to help you. So if that community needs protection, they should also help the society to fight that vice, especially when it is going contrary to what other people so believe in. Thank you.
Francis, we have an indication from the organizing team that we may have to close the meeting a little bit early. So I would like to have your final remarks for today. But before that, I really would like to thank you for taking your time to be here today with us. It feels like you are at home. The distance is abridged by technology. So thank you, and let's hope that we will make these online meetings traditional. Please give us your closing remarks and let us wrap up in the next 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Nada. Thank you, our host, those who are viewing us live and those who are listening in. Once again, the message that I would say is that Ugandans, we should not lose hope. Because if we lose hope, that is dangerous. But then, as I say, the party that I believe in, which is ANT, the model of empowering citizens is the right way to go. And the model of reaching the grassroots to continue sensitizing them, to bridge or to stand in the gap of where civic education is no longer in existence in Uganda is the way to go. This will nurture in values of good governance, and this will create proactive policies and proactive leadership. And this will, at the end of the day, bring in create an environment that is conducive for social and political and economic prosperity. And as people in the diaspora, we will continue. We know the terrain is rough back home, but we'll continue supporting in all ways that we can to ensure that the transformation agenda of ANT takes root. Thank you.
Now, I have a different message that, oh no, sorry, we are still wrapping up. So I would like to thank you once again. It's been enlightening, it's been insightful, and what I took out of the conversation is that we shouldn't lose hope, and we should share knowledge and empower people to think for themselves and to make their own decisions. So with these words, I would like to thank everyone who has been watching and listening. Stay well, everyone. Make the right choices, and see you next time. Thank you for being with us. Goodbye.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you. Bye.
So the Twitter
Francis
space
has gone.
And Francis is gone. Okay.
Hold on.